House of the Dragon Season 2 Episode 5, Regent. No spoilers for the future of House of the Dragon, but if I do, I'll warn you first.
She was alive. I felt it.
Aemond Targaryen has always made up for his lack of brains and eyes with an abundance of balls. But his decision to let Criston Cole parade Meleys' head around King's Landing is shockingly stupid, even for him. We hear small folk whisper things like, "They killed a dragon." And, "Mark my words, this is a black omen."
Mark my words, this is a black omen.
"'Tis an abomination," and "Rhaenyra will answer this."
Rhaenyra will answer this. It is an abomination.
Yeah, when your absolute power rests solely on the fearsomeness of your dragons, it's not a good idea to show people how easily they can just die. Meleys is a representation of the ancient strength of House Targaryen, and they're parading her severed head in the streets like it's something to brag about. Being so inept at politics that your royal family of dragon riders starts a civil war is not something to brag about. Hugh's friend says, "I thought the dragons was gods," and Hugh says they're just meat. Oh, Alicent, you're sad that your son is partially dead? Whoever could have caused this? Maybe if she didn't call into question the point of his existence last episode, he wouldn't have flown off to his doom. I'm beginning to think teenage girls are not ready to be mothers, and it will have adverse effects on the child. Aegon was wearing the Conqueror's Valyrian steel armor, which is probably the only reason he was able to withstand dragonfire and a hefty drop from the sky. Aegon was wearing literal plot armor, since the story says he can't die yet. It is said that Valyrian steel is forged with spells, so maybe the magic of Aegon's armor made it counteract the magic of Dragonflame. It's double Valyrian magic, so it just cancels each other out. Aegon's left eye is sewn shut, like his brother Aemond's in Season 1, Episode 7. Maybe Aemond is thinking they're even now. Aegon bullied him, and Aemond bullied him back last episode. And where was Aegon when Aemond needed him the most? Drunk on some stairs. Aegon had his turn to be king, and now Aemond will take his turn. Helena's one line, which I guess is better than 0 lines like last week, asks Aemond if the throne was worth the price. She probably knows Aemond tried to kill her brother husband, but she's more interested in the drama of it all. Sir Alfred Broom, feminist, says women suck at doing war. It's not Rhaenyra's fault, but she's a girl and wasn't trained for this sort of thing. But Rhaenyra says Alfred doesn't know shit about wars either, which is true, probably. Westeros has been largely at peace since Jaehaerys' reign, and Sir Alfred has been part of the Dragonstone garrison since before Rhaenyra was even born.
What would you have me do?
What would you have me do, Mother?
Rhaenyra and Aegon have something in common. Both of their councils do not respect them as military leaders. Aegon is an idiot, and Rhaenyra has boobs, but both are brave. Aegon goes to battle despite his ineptitude, and Rhaenyra wants to fly off and burn people with Syrax, but she'll have to make do with a Mallister or a Tarly doing it for her. Get back in the kitchen, Rhaenyra. Thank the gods for Baela and her ability to have dialogue. She tells us that as a young girl, Rhaenys snuck into the dragon pit and claimed Meleys, who was formerly ridden by Alyssa Targaryen, Daemon and Viserys' mother. She was dead from one of the 2 ways women can die in this show, childbirth. And Daemon was furious that Rhaenys claimed his mother's dragon, sort of like how Baela and Rhaena were furious when Aemond claimed their mother's dragon. So Rhaenys claimed the dragon of Daemon's mother, and as a sort of revenge, Daemon then claimed the dragon of Rhaenys' father. Prince Aemon rode Caraxes before his death. Rhaenyra gives Baela this box containing a Hand of the King badge, and asks her to give it to her grandfather, Corlys Velaryon, who becomes the Hand of the Queen at the end of the episode. So this Velaryon will help this Targaryen rule, but Corlys will need to find another Velaryon to be his heir. He believes only names matter in the history books, but might be willing to break that rule to put Baela Targaryen on the Driftwood throne, in honor of Rhaenys. But Baela believes in blood. Corlys is of salt and sea, whereas Baela is a Targaryen dragonlord. Her purpose is to serve blood and fire.
Daemon, you were made to wear it. My favorite son.
So Daemon's still working through some things in Harrenhal. I shan't lie, this is not how I thought we'd see Alyssa Targaryen in live action. Could hardly recognize her with those basic irises. That's better. Daemon has this psychosexual urge to fornicate his mother, who he never really knew. Alyssa died when Daemon was 3, after a rough childbirth to a son called Aegon. Daemon's little brother died shortly after their mother, less than a year old. Alyssa was mentioned in Season 1. Viserys said Daemon was always her favorite.
No. I will not revisit this debate. You were always Mother's favorite.
And that obviously sticks with him, since Alyssa calls Daemon her favorite son in the stream.
My favorite son.
He was made to wear the crown, if only he had been born first instead of Viserys. So Daemon's dream is confirming his own bias. No one is fit to wear the crown except him. And because Daemon was too young to remember what she looked like, he doesn't realize he's having dream sex with his own mother. Daemon is so wrapped up in Valyrian purity, is part of the reason he hated Rhea Royce and chose Lena and Rhaenyra instead. And Massaria alludes to Daemon preferring silver-haired women in the pilot. In a way, Daemon is making love to his own Valyrian legacy. Most people just read about their family's history, but Daemon needs a more physical connection. He also seems to be extremely lacking in validation from the women in his life. His mother is dead, his marriage to Rhaenyra is on the rocks, he killed one wife, and another committed dragon seppuku in front of him, plus he has no idea how to talk to his daughters. He seems to be a generous lover, for whatever that's worth. Also, they faithfully adapted Alyssa's freakiness in the sheetsiness. Here's a direct quote from Alyssa in Fire and Blood. I mounted him and took him for a ride, and I mean to do the same tonight. I love to ride. On her wedding night to her brother Balon, the young bride's sounds of pleasure could be heard all the way to Duskendale. She just seems to enjoy sex, even if it's with her own son. Thus concludes my unqualified psychoanalysis of Daemon's wet dreams.
The roof alone has needed tending since the reign of Rhaenys and the...
Simon Strong evokes the name of King Aenys, the first Targaryen king after the Conqueror. He was terrible, died from indecision, and his kid was usurped by his brother. Aenys is not the kind of dragonlord Daemon looks up to.
But now we must name a regent to take his place. And I am well prepared to do it again.
And
Uncle, please sit.
Alicent pretends sexism doesn't exist and puts forth her own name as the official regent and Lord Protector of the Iron Throne until Aegon's new armor is ready. But that would undermine the Green's whole point. Men should rule before women as long as there are men to rule. One such man is Aemond, who becomes the Prince Regent of the Seven Kingdoms. Maybe he's hiding the real crown of the Conqueror somewhere, and we can forget all about this pretend one. Kat wants to leave King's Landing and go live with her brother in Tumbleton, a big market town in the Reach, about 200 miles west of the capital. Hugh finds it difficult to leave, especially with a dying daughter and a promise of gold from the king. He's in a sticky situation. Stay and potentially starve, or go and potentially starve. Turns out, Aemond locks down the city and forces them to stay anyway.
Get him out! Somebody open the doors! Open the doors!
What will Hugh do to save his family? Jacaerys is a man, so he flies off to act because his mother Rhaenyra is a woman, and the queen, and she can't act. His plan is quite simple. He's assembling a team.
What if I told you we were putting a team together?
With House Frey's submission, the Stark army can join up with Daemon's army in the Riverlands and face the Lannister army approaching from the west. By the way, I think they've made the Trident look even bigger here than in Game of Thrones, which I appreciate. This is the Green Fork, and just north of here is where the two largest tributaries come together, making this depiction accurately wide. It's filmed in Northern Ireland at the Strangford Loch, where in the year 877, battle was joined between two rival tribes of Vikings, called the Fair Heathens and the Dark Heathens. Historians believe there was actually shared blood on either side. This was a war between kin. Wikipedia calls it a dynastic squabble for control of the kingdom. So it's fitting that this inlet is featured in the Dance of the Dragons, another dynastic squabble for control of the kingdom. Daemon is a man of many titles and much pride. Do not call him a prince, nor prince consort, or even king consort. Just call him king.
What would you call the husband of the queen?
Well, the king.
There it is then.
Consort.
I'd also like to commend the writers for inventing interesting side plots and character motivation for Daemon, since this middle part of the dance is kind of poorly written in Fire and Blood, and most characters don't do a whole lot. Daemon will first and foremost always be a rogue prince. His loyalty to Viserys was questioned early in Season 1, but Viserys thought Daemon lacked the patience to be a ruling king. Viserys called him out later as well, convinced Daemon wanted his crown. Life in Pentos mellowed him out somewhat, and he even places Viserys' crown upon his disease-riddled head, a symbol of Daemon's maturation, finally at ease with his brother's reign. But now he's putting himself before Rhaenyra, despite crowning her the same way he crowned Viserys. He believes Rhaenyra cannot succeed without him, that people will look to a man for strength. Who better but Viserys' first true heir, as he names himself. Daemon says he's going to take the Iron Throne with or without Rhaenyra, and if she does join him, they'll rule together as king and queen. Daemon will not hesitate to put himself before Rhaenyra as king of Westeros. But if she can prove herself to him and take her throne with fire and blood, Daemon wants to rule with her. It's kind of romantic in an extremely fucked up way. I think what Daemon truly wants is the old Rhaenyra back. Or, well, young Rhaenyra. That's the way Daemon sees her in his Harrenhal weirwood trips. A defiant dragon rider who won't let the Hightowers usurp her throne. So far, Rhaenyra is showing too much restraint and reminding Daemon too much of his brother. He has a singular vision for the way things ought to be, and Rhaenyra needs to get with it or get lost, in his view at least. Rhaenyra seems ready to join him though. A few episodes ago, we saw her reading about Queen Visenya the Conqueror, a bride fit for Daemon. Part of Rhaenyra has always admired Visenya. She even named her stillborn daughter after her. Jace says Visenya is not a good role model to look up to.
I hope you do not mean to use her as an example.
Why shouldn't I?
Which in some ways is accurate. But Rhaenyra might disagree. She finds herself eternally at this crossroad between the fire and blood persona of Visenya and the peace and prophecy persona of Viserys. I, for one, have had enough of this sickly bag of withered bones and his dumb prophecy about Arya. Also, Alice Rivers just disappears behind Simon Strong here. We never see her walk out of frame. We know she isn't just a figment of Daemon's imagination, because other characters have acknowledged her existence. Unless, maybe Simon is just following Daemon's gaze, wondering what Daemon's looking at? Is Alice Rivers real? I think so. Finally, we get some Elinda Massey action. After failing to braid Rhaenyra's hair, and getting barked at earlier in the episode,
Not now.
she sent to King's Landing on a propaganda mission. Elinda is one of Rhaenyra's ladies-in-waiting, basically very fancy, noble-born handmaidens. She must have known Diana when she still worked in the Red Keep, under the abusive Prince Aegon. Mysaria has hatched a plan to score Rhaenyra some points with the Smallfolk, who are already sort of on her side. During the Meleys parade, one person says Rhaenyra will answer this.
Rhaenyra will answer this.
Meaning Rhaenyra will enact revenge. But they were also all told Rhaenyra is a child murderer and kinslayer, and her friend Rhaenys killed a lot of them in the Dragon Pit, so who knows what they believe. We know that lots of King's Landing is poor and starving, so maybe Elinda and Diana will bring food to the Smallfolk in the name of Queen Rhaenyra, thus winning the city to her side. I lived, bitch. Well, that's about all I have to say about all that. Let me know in the comments which Frey is your favorite, and which female member of Daemon's family you'd like him to hallucinate sex with next time. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe. Hey, thanks for 40k by the way. And I'll see you next week. Goodbye.